Their business acumen is staggering. Their wealth is subject of envy. But behind the money, the notoriety, and the often unwanted attention is a sense of purpose, to help those in need, to build a legacy to be proud of. This is a series that delves into the lives of those who give. This is The Philanthropists. Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Benmergui. Welcome to The Philanthropists, an ongoing series where we look at giving and the people who do it. Today, Nathan and Glennie Lindenberg are my guests. They have spent their life working together, being married, and giving. Nathan, Glennie, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll start, Nathan, with you. Where were you born?
I was born in Tel Aviv, Israel, and I immigrated to Canada when I was just shy of 3 years old.
Okay, so your memory of Tel Aviv would be pictures that your parents had of you in Tel Aviv as a baby, I guess.
I have no real recollection of that for the first 3 years of my life.
And so, were you feeling connected to Israel over the years? Or was it like, no,
Very
I'm here?
much so. I mean, my parents were Holocaust survivors, and they had immigrated to Israel after the war illegally. They were brought in by the Haganah from Italy, and they made it through to Israel during the Mandate. And my father was a soldier in the War of Independence, and my mother had her sole surviving brother still living in Israel, so I was quite connected. And although my parents didn't speak Hebrew in the home, Israel was part of our life. We connected with our family. There was letter writing. It was before telephones were used so frequently, and so that was a big part of our life. And we always, Israel was just part of our lives. We went back to Israel for my Bar Mitzvah in 1964, so that was something that we were looking forward to for many years. And my mother had a great uncle in Israel that we promised we would return, and it was a big deal, growing up. So Israel was part of our consciousness always.
So I remember being a kid in the 67 war, about being here. Do you remember watching that war unfold and what you went through watching it as somebody you knew you were actually from there, but you weren't there?
Well, it was obviously a very anxious time in the days preceding the war, and of course the euphoria after the war. It was an incredible time. I was a teenager at the time, and I actually went to Hebrew University in 1970, so it was only 3 years after the war, and Israel was an incredible place in those heady times. So it was a wonderful experience at the university, but it was a wonderful experience to be in Israel 3 years after the 6-Day War, traveling all over, going to El Arish on the weekend, or leaving Jerusalem to go to Nablus for a chicken dinner. It was just incredibly, almost intoxicating. The country was, I would say, on a high. There were the hopes and dreams seemed to be fully realized. So it was an incredible time to be in Israel, and it was an incredible time to be a student at the Hebrew University.
What were you taking at Hebrew U?
I was taking general political science courses. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do, but the faculty was incredible. At the time, there were probably 500 or 600 students from North America at the university, and there were hundreds of kids from New York and from California and from all parts of the United States, and people from Canada, from Montreal and Toronto and Vancouver. It was a 1-year program. People would come for a 1 year of study, and it was never as well attended as it was in those years from after the 6-Day War.
Yeah. And Glennie, you're a Torontonian.
I'm Toronto born and bred.
So your connection to your Judaism and your feeling for Israel?
Well, my mother was born in Poland and came here before the war. My father was a survivor. And in our house, Jewish education was a priority for them. And so they sent my brother and me to Hebrew day school from kindergarten on. So I went to Associated Hebrew Day School in Toronto. I also went to a Jewish camp. I went to Camp Ramah, Machane Ramah, Canada. And Israel was very important. I didn't take my first trip to Israel until after I was married. But it was just from an educational point of view and from an identity point of view, it was always just a very important piece of growing up in our house. My parents had, I think my parents had taken a trip to Israel when I was younger. And
So when you first went, how did it hit you?
it was overwhelming. I was in my early 20s, and I went with Nathan and met family there that from my father's side primarily, met Nathan's family there, and we traveled all over the country. We had the summer off. I think we had finished our articles. We finished law school and then our articles. So we had the summer off before we started our bar admission course. So we went to Israel for 7.5 weeks, and it was wonderful to spend that amount of time there. And it was just an immediate connection with the people in the country.
So, Canadian Friends of Hebrew University, right? As an organization, first of all, how did you guys get connected with it? And then we'll talk about how you actually sort of ambassador your way through being part of it. How did you first connect with, I know you went to Hebrew U, so that would be an easy thing, but how did you guys connect to it in a way that said, we want to do this?
As you see, I have a sort of nostalgic connection to the university, but I've often said this when I wanted to sort of direct my philanthropic or public service efforts. The university just was a natural place for me. First of all, it was somewhere I had been, an institution that I knew, and it was in Israel. And as a Zionist institution, the university is, I think, second to none. The whole history of the university is so compelling to me on a personal level.
What is it about the history that?
Well, when the first Zionist conference was convened in Basel in the late 19th century, it was one of the agenda items. They decided at that time to establish a University of the Jewish people in Israel. It was a priority. I mean, they were talking about establishing a Jewish state for the ingathering of Jews, and they were talking about a university. It was unbelievably compelling to me on a sort of philosophical level. And that was exactly what was done. The efforts of the early Zionists in the early part of the 20th century were to establish a university, ingathering of academics from Europe, and it became a home for the most part for German academics who left Germany in the 20s and in the 30s and established the university. Albert Einstein was one of the founders. And I don't think you can get a better pedigree for intellectual pursuits than Albert Einstein. And
he flunked math.
He flunked math, but he was. To be that's the type of association. That's the spirit of excellence, and what was created at the university. It's just unbelievably compelling. I just mentioned this earlier this week. We were talking about the Waldorf Astoria in New York. And I was once at a Hebrew University event at the Waldorf Astoria, and someone told me that Albert Einstein ran a fundraiser in this room at the Waldorf Astoria in the 20s and raised $100,000 for the university. Which is an incredible amount of money. And, we're still doing the same thing. And Glennie and I were just in Israel for the Board of Governors meetings, and the cornerstone for the Einstein House was established because the university is the beneficiary of his personality, his likeness, his image, and everything else. All his papers. It'll be housed in a beautiful building right on the campus. So it's sort of like for me, it's sort of full circle, when we went to that event where the cornerstone was laid, and to see Albert Einstein's personal papers where it says E equals MC squared, there's really nothing
You look at it, what does that
comparable.
mean?
Yeah, so there's nothing really that comes close to that on a sort of intellectual level for me, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah.
And so it's, there are a lot of elements that draw us to the university. So it was sort of a natural home for for me and for my family.
So what draws you to Hebrew U?
Well, I have to say that it was Nathan's connection to Hebrew University. I didn't go to university in Israel. It was quite unusual in the early 70s to spend a year abroad. Most people went to university in the city where they lived. So when he got involved in Hebrew University, it was wonderful. Wonderful work for him because he was so connected to it, and meaningful for me as well.
When you go there now and you walk through the place, the university campus now, what?
Oh, it's just, it's so invigorating. It's just so energizing. First of all, the campus is physically absolutely beautiful. And then you go from place to place and you meet the brightest young people. And we have the opportunity to meet a lot of the professors and academicians here who come to visit Canada. We've been fortunate to be able to host some of those people in our home, and they're just in so many different areas. They're just making such a difference, and the university itself is a wonderful place in terms of its diversity and inclusivity, and the lengths that they go to encourage diversity is absolutely wonderful. And I wish that were more well known about the university. It's a Hebrew university with an incredibly multicultural population.
Yeah, the name can be tricky, right?
Right.
You think,
right.
You gotta be Jewish, you gotta
exactly,
be, yeah.
Exactly. And I think now, for example, over 20% of the student population is Arabic, and they have foreign students from all over the world. So that's just one wonderful aspect of the university.
So, how long have you two been married?
47 years.
47 years. And you work together a lot, right? Fundraising is not an easy thing. It's to ask people for money and all of that. What is it that you tell people? What's the pitch for Hebrew U? Or how do you engage people to say, you know what, I'm going to care about this and put money into it and energy into it?
I think that, from my own personal experience of being a donor, I think of how it makes me feel. And I've always said that I never cease to be amazed at how good I feel when I make a contribution to a charity or to an institution of some kind. And I think that people want to give, people want to contribute because I think they understand the need and they understand how it's part of life and it's part of our duty and part of our commitment. And really, I must say I have Glennie to thank for that because she's been a more prodigious fundraiser than I have over the years. I'm obviously not as good at it as Glennie is, but it's I find that people are looking for a way to give, a way to contribute. And you just have to tell the story. And I must say that Hebrew University is a very compelling story for me. And if I'm able to transmit my enthusiasm for the institution and make people understand, what the institution does and what it represents. I mean, Glennie touched upon the diversity and the demographics. I mean, that's an incredible story that is not known well enough. But also, the excellence of the institution. The number of Nobel laureates that have come out of Hebrew University And if the politics were a little different, there'd be even more, because there are unbelievable, I would say, superstars at the university who are doing work which is unbelievable. And we're not as familiar with it here, but the amount of research dollars that the university gets from the European Union for the Max Planck Foundation, which is out of Germany, huge, like the Rockefeller Foundation in the States, is unbelievable, because people are doing unbelievable things in medicine and computer sciences. So I think if you tell people that story and they hear that story, they want to be a part of it in their own way. And one way you can be part of that is to contribute to the institution.
All right, well, you're the boss when it comes to money, so what's the trick?
I'm in charge of payables, and Nathan was in charge of receivables. That's what we used to say.
So what's the trick? Because fundraising is really necessary, but not everyone can do it well.
I think if, I think I guess there are a number of factors, and I think one is that you yourself have to bring some passion to whether it's Hebrew University or whether it's an organization, some other organization. It doesn't really matter what it is, but I think if you're asking someone to make a financial commitment, you yourself have to have a very strong feeling and really be passionate about that organization. And I think that, to put it colloquially, I think you have to find a hook. I think that it's not enough for you to be passionate. You have to have an understanding of what your potential donor is interested in, or what might make them feel. And it may not be Hebrew University, and it may not be a Holocaust museum, and it may not be anything else that you're interested in. So I think you do some homework, you do your due diligence, and hopefully you're approaching someone that you can make that connection with.
Right. So one of the things that you've done, it just opened, the Toronto Holocaust Museum. There was always a small kind of piece for people, but certainly not something on this scale. Tell me about that.
So I was asked to chair the Holocaust Museum Renewal Council, moving from our old facility to a new museum. Not a new building, but new space in a beautiful building, the Chef Family Building on UJA's Sherman campus. And I have that connection because, as I said, my late father was a survivor, Nathan's parents were survivors, and for a whole host of reasons that just seemed to be, I wouldn't say pinnacle isn't the right word, but it just seemed to be the right thing for me to do at this particular stage. I've been fundraising for many years, but this particular project was so important to me and so personal to me that it was really an honor to take it on.
It's interesting, the idea of being the children of people who had the horror of the Holocaust and living through it, the survivors, as we call them. I wonder, does that give you an extra impetus to go, it doesn't stop here? I have to do something to make sure that this goes forward, that being Jewish in the world is more than just suffering, that we have to do something to, like Hebrew U or whatever we're doing, right?
Yeah, I think that as far as the museum is concerned, I think that it's very important as an educational tool, and not just for families of survivors, and not just for the Jewish population, but for everybody. The way the museum, the first step when you go on a museum tour is pre-war Jewish life. Because otherwise, the Holocaust is a story without a context. You're telling a story, you're trying to teach a lesson in a vacuum. And that is really so significant for everybody to have an understanding about how rich Jewish life in Europe was before the war. So you want people to have an understanding that, yes, Jewish people suffered these horrific atrocities, but there was a rich Jewish life before that, which included something like Hebrew University, and there is a rich Jewish life that has continued after the Holocaust. So you had lives, and survivors went through these unspeakable tragedies, and then many of them, and in fact most of them, not all of them, but most of them, were able to rebuild their very active Jewish lives. So that's the whole story. It's not just the Holocaust, although obviously that has to be a very critical focus of the museum, but it has that context.
So what do you hope for Hebrew University now when you think about?
Well, I really hope that it's able to sustain its excellence and its preeminence in the academic constellation in the world, that they maintain its ranking and really be sort of, it sounds trite, but a light unto the nation, to continue to represent the country in the way that it has, and bringing discoveries and cures and just doing what it does so well and continue to do so for many years. And I'm always surprised, pleasantly surprised, when I go back and I see the young academics coming through, the PhD students, becoming fellowship students, and meeting returning PhD students who have done fellowships all over the world, and it's really, it makes you so proud, because it's just unparalleled excellence.
Well, Nathan, Glennie, lovely work. I can't believe you've worked together for 47 years. Stayed married. God love you for it. Great work you're doing with Hebrew U and with the Holocaust Museum and with everything. Just the idea of giving, as people keep thinking of, I'm giving away, but you're giving and getting, right? It's a lovely feeling. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for watching. I'm Ralph Benmergui. If you want to see more episodes of The Philanthropists, go to Canadian Friends of Hebrew University on YouTube. Take care of each other. See you soon. Bye.